10 a.m. in Minneapolis. It's 4 p.m. here in the UK. You're watching Sky News today, and we're beginning this hour with breaking news coming out of the United States. There has been a shooting at a Catholic primary school in the city of Minneapolis. It's understood the person who has responsible for this shooting has been contained. As it's reported, there is no active threat to the community. Well, in just the last few minutes, President Trump has posted onto his social media site, Truth Social, "I have been fully briefed on the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The FBI quickly responded and they are on the scene. The White House will continue to monitor this situation," he writes. "Please join me in praying for everyone involved." Now, just a short time ago, we heard from a man who was close to the school at the time of the shooting.
My daughter here went to school here.
For 9 years.
And we've gone to church here for many, many years. So I don't know who. I've got people contacting me that, I'm limited as to exactly what I know, but so we know people. I have friends that know people who have been shot. So
the survivor who described the wood being blown around them.
What's that now?
The survivor who described the wood being kind of blown off around them.
Yep.
Remind me how you know them.
So I didn't know him.
Okay.
This gentleman goes to morning mass every day of the week, and he usually goes to the Basilica.
Yeah.
He just happened to go here randomly, and this is what happened.
And you talked to him as he came out?
Yep. All the parents were on the, if you've never been in there, there's a right and left, and there's an aisle in between. So all the parents were on the left side, and so he was on the left side. So there must have been sporadic gunfire going on. He said it looked like just a normal Sunday mass. So it was full, of people and children. So.
And how did he get out?
He just ran, when this fire, he said it seemed like it went on for eternity, but when it stopped, he ran out of the building.
When did you first hear about this?
So we live about 2 blocks from here. I was on a call. All the windows of our home were open. I know what gunfire sounds like, and I could tell. I was shocked. I said, "There's no way that could be gunfire." There was so much of it. So it was sporadic. So it was a semi-automatic. It seemed like a rifle. It certainly didn't sound like a handgun. And so he must have reloaded, several times for sure.
Do you remember about how many gunshots?
I'll just say maybe 30 to 50 to, somewhere in that area.
Do you recall about how long
the fire went on?
Yeah.
For, I would say, several minutes. 3 minutes or 4. Which is a long time for live gunfire. That's a long time. You can wrap off a lot of shots.
Well, that was an eyewitness who, as we heard, lives not far from this school, reporting that he heard what sounded like semi-automatic fire, saying it didn't sound like a handgun. And it sounds as if the individual may have reloaded, because the sound of the gunfire that he heard from his home, he said his windows were open, was sporadic. He said that the fire went on for several minutes, and finishing that interview given to local media, they were saying you can fire a lot of bullets in that time. Now, he was also spoken to, this individual who lives not far from the Annunciation Catholic School, alongside his daughter, who also spoke to the media there. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
This was their first day of all school mass, so they have mass once a week on Wednesdays. And basically the way that it's set up is children and staff, they sit on the right side of the church. Then parents and other visitors who are just dropping in for mass, they sit on the left side. Mass is for an hour, and I guess it sounds like this happened at around 8:20, and the mass starts at around 8. So
it would have been during mass?
Yes.
How long did you attend school here?
For 9 years, kindergarten through 8th grade. I was done at Annunciation in 2018.
I did speak with a survivor.
Have you talked to any classmates or friends about
Yes. And my best friend, her mom was about to go to mass, but then something came up and they didn't go. So I know a lot of people, everyone's kind of connected right now in the community and is talking about this.
Have you heard about victims or
Not specifically, but I've heard there have been several fatalities. It breaks my heart, makes me sick to my stomach, knowing that there's probably people I know that are either injured or maybe they were even killed. It doesn't make me feel safe at all with this community that I've been a part of for so long. So me and my friends were talking like this is like our version of 9/11 because we didn't grow up during 9/11. So this is like this with our community. That's what it feels like.
You can hear there the pain and fear in the community of the Annunciation Catholic School in the hours after a shooting began at the preschool to grade 8, so primary school facility there in the southwest of the US city of Minneapolis. At this stage, police, the city officials are telling us that the individual responsible for the attack has been contained. Whether that means that they are trapped within the school building, it's unclear at this stage, but officials have reported that the wider community are no longer at risk and that they think that the shooter is contained within the school. Now, we heard there from that eyewitness who, alongside her father, overheard the shooting as it began earlier this morning, reporting that it was during or just shortly after an all-schools mass had begun. The school's website report that a mass was due to be held at 8:15 in the morning, so a couple of hours ago. It's day 3 of the new school term at the Annunciation Catholic School, and an all-school mass was to be held at 8:15. Now, we are also being told now from Hennepin Healthcare, a local healthcare provider in Minneapolis, that they are to be giving an update at 10:15, so 11:15 Eastern, on those who have been injured as a result of this. The eyewitness there that we had just heard from saying that she believes that several people have been injured. Her father, who spoke just before her, saying that he had heard semi-automatic fire, didn't think it was a handgun, and that the fire had gone on for several minutes. Well, our David Blevins is in Washington, D.C. He's covering this for us stateside. So, David, look, we're waiting on that update from Hennepin Healthcare to get a sense of the scale of this, whether or not there are multiple casualties, as has been reported, their current condition. And also, of course, we will be awaiting any news of the shooter, who officials say is contained.
Yes, we're also just hearing, Kamali, from the mayor's office. Jacob Frey is the mayor of Minneapolis, saying that he too will hold a news conference at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So perhaps that is a joint press conference that's going to take place when we will receive more details related to this shooting. Right now, the details are fairly sparse. We do know that the shooting took place at Annunciation Catholic School, or perhaps in the neighbouring church, because it's all on one site. That's what we understand. And there was, as you say, a mass taking place this morning at around 8:15, and eyewitnesses are reporting the gunfire at around 8:20. Now, the children only returned to school on Monday of this week, so it's the worst possible beginning to their school year. This is a school that serves students from preschool to 8th grade, so the equivalent of primary school in the United Kingdom. And I can just bring you an update, Kamali, from the Justice Department here in the United States. They are saying that 3 people have died in this shooting and that 20 have been injured. That's coming from Reuters, attributing it to the Justice Department here in Washington. So they are reporting that 3 people have died at that shooting in the Minneapolis Catholic School and that 20 have been injured. This is the 4th shooting in the city of Minneapolis in the space of 12 hours. The local police department describing the level of violence there as deeply concerning in recent days. And as you can see, there is a major police operation continuing despite the fact that the city of Minneapolis says the shooter has now been been contained and there is no longer an active threat, that they continue just to deal with the aftermath of what happened there this morning. And it certainly is very concerning to listen to those reports from eyewitnesses who talk about what they believe was semi-automatic gunfire for a prolonged period of time in a building where there were children attending Mass, it would seem, in the early this morning.
Yes, just to reiterate that news, as David has been reporting, coming from the Reuters news agency, 3 people dead at the shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. It's according to Justice Department officials being reported by the Reuters news agency. And NBC, our team in the United States, are now reporting that the gunman involved has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's according to 3 law enforcement officials who we can report are familiar with the investigation. That's NBC reporting that the gunman has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound following this shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School, we think during Mass. Now, we are looking at live picture here from outside the school. We could see that what looked like the evacuation of some school children there, perhaps being taken out of school. This is a pre-kindergarten to 8th grade school, so a primary school in British terms, where a shooting took place during an all-school Mass, which began at 8:15. The Justice Department, according to the Reuters news agency, reporting that 3 people have been dead at this shooting, 20 people injured. And NBC, our partners in the United States, reporting that the gunman has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The President, Donald Trump, has said that he is monitoring the situation. The FBI are on their way to the scene. Now let's bring back in our US correspondent, David Blevins. So David, perhaps some clarity there as to what was meant when it was said that the gunman was contained. Our partners in the United States, NBC, saying that according to 3 law enforcement officials that are familiar with the investigation, the gunman has died from a self-inflicted wound.
Yes, perhaps more detail will be made available in the next 15 or 20 minutes. We understand a press conference will take place when officials will report on the events at Annunciation Catholic Church and School this morning. We knew the gravity of the situation really from the words being posted online by the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, who described it as a horrific act of violence. Then the governor, who has been also posting online his concerns about those parents and their children who are dealing with this. And then the Secretary of Homeland Security in the United States, Kristi Noem, who described it as a heinous attack. And the President himself having been fully informed and kept abreast of developments there. So whenever you are hearing from the Governor and from the Secretary of Homeland Security and from the President himself, you know that it has been a serious situation. And we are now hearing from officials at the Justice Department that 3 people have died. And our colleagues at NBC here in the United States are reporting that the gunman has died also from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So another mass shooting incident in the United States to add to the long list of mass shooting incidents in the United States, a nation that continues to be paralysed by the debate over the right to bear arms versus gun crime. Here in the city of Minneapolis itself, this is the 4th deadly shooting in the space of just 12 hours, something the police department there had already been expressing a grave concern about. And in this case, it is a shooting that appears to have been witnessed by very young children, primary school age children, who it would seem were attending Mass with their parents this morning when this attack took place.
Yeah, and all ages, all years Mass at 8:15 in the morning in the first week back at school for these kids at the Annunciation Catholic School, as you say, David, a primary school, and that reporting now that 3 people have been killed. We believe that includes the gunman as well as 20 people injured. We are awaiting that news conference update from the city as well as from health officials due in the next few minutes. Of course, we will bring it to you as soon as we get it here on Sky News. Expect it will be a live event. It's due in, as I say, at 1:15 the hour. It is 1:15 the hour now, but as you can imagine, in Minneapolis, things are moving pretty quickly. So unsurprising if those timings slip. We're looking at these live pictures here. You can see foreground an FBI agent, and in the background there, what looks to be a young family, perhaps children who have been evacuated from the school with their carers, their parents, leaving what will have been a terrifying situation for anyone, not least a young person, to have had to witness during their first week back at school. The first week back at school, and again, gun violence, a plague, as David was saying, in the United States, afflicting them, this time these children at the Annunciation Catholic Primary School. Now, David, in these situations, you've covered these stories before, as have I. The question will turn to the right to bear arms, the amount of guns in the United States, and just having a look at the rules in Minnesota. We know that in some states there is a right to carry, a right to open carry. Minnesota as a state is described as a shall issue state. That means that a license can be issued, must be issued, if an individual meets the requirements. One of those requirements is that they're over 21, they've completed an authorised firearms course, they fill out an application, of course, and that application is then processed through the county sheriff's office. I mean, my initial assessment of that, David, and you can probably clarify this for me, is that seems like slightly stricter rules in terms of getting a gun than in many other states in Minnesota.
Yes, and that would not be terribly surprising given that it is a democratic state where the governor is Tim Walz, who will be known to many people, of course, as Kamala Harris's running mate in the general election last year. He was one of the first people to post online in response to the events this morning, expressing his concern for the children and their parents and saying he was praying for them. I was in the state of Minnesota myself just a few months ago, reporting another shooting when you may remember a Democratic politician, a member of the state legislature there, who was shot dead alongside her husband in another act of violence. Another politician and his wife survived that shooting. And as I say, this is the fourth deadly shooting in the city of Minneapolis itself in the space of 24 hours. So that is going to push the issue of gun violence back onto the agenda. Not that it's ever very far off the agenda in the United States. When we think back through recent history, how often presidents have vowed to find a way to address it, and yet they have failed to be able to do so. This school, Annunciation Catholic Church and School, all on one site, is in a neighbourhood called Tangletown in the south of the city, and it was there this morning shortly after 8:20 the emergency services responded to reports of an active shooter. There was a mass taking place. It takes place every Wednesday, we understand, when the pupils from the school sit on one side, their parents and other members of the congregation on another. Eyewitnesses report the sound of semi-automatic gunfire for a prolonged time, 3 to 4 minutes, they said, which is indeed a very long time. And we were already aware that it was a very serious situation because of comments from people like the governor, like the mayor, like the Secretary of Homeland Security, all talking about the horrific violence, a heinous attack on this community, and the president himself talking about how quickly the FBI had responded. But we are now in a position to say, on the basis of what we're hearing from the Department of Justice in Washington, that 2 people have been shot dead and that the shooter has taken his own life in this morning's incident at Annunciation Catholic Church and School in the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah, and once again, school shootings in the headlines in the United States. A large number, extraordinarily, of school shootings take place in the US. Many will remember back to some of the earliest that were reported on rolling news of the shootings in the United States at Columbine, a high school back in the 90s. And people will also remember, I think, back in 2022, a shooting at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. That's a primary school there. 19 students killed there, as well as 2 teachers, and dozens more injured. Kids in the United States have to go through active shooter drills. That is a regular thing that young people, kids, as soon as they begin school, have to be taught. As in many other parts of the world, we're taught about escaping from fires. Kids in schools in the United States are frequently taught how to escape from an active shooter situation. And this one here at this school in Minneapolis, the Annunciation Catholic primary school, has now resulted, as we understand it, officials telling us, in 2 people being killed, 20 people being injured in just the first week of term, the first week beginning for these children from preschool up until grade 8, and they will now forever remember their first year back at school in 2025 as a year in which there was a shooting as they were celebrating Mass first thing in the morning. Now, we are expecting a news conference from health officials, as well as the city mayor, Jacob Frey, at around about 1:30, I would have thought. Jacob Frey is saying that he will speak at around 1:30 the hour. We're expecting those medical officials to speak at 1:15, but look, there's a situation in the city, so we can understand why those timings have slipped. Obviously, this has happened in the middle of a community. We're looking at the live pictures now. You can see this school and church campus surrounded by homes, families living nearby. And one of those families nearby spoke to journalists in the time just after this shooting. And here's what they had to say.
My daughter here went to school here.
For 9 years.
Yep, and we've gone to church here for many, many years. So I don't know who. I've got people contacting me that, you know, I'm limited as to exactly what I know, but so we know people. I have friends that know people who have been shot. So
The survivor who described the wood being blown around them.
what's that now?
The survivor who described the wood being kind of blown off around them.
Yep.
Remind me how you know them.
So I didn't know him.
Okay.
This gentleman goes to morning mass every day of the week, and he usually goes to the basilica.
Yeah.
He just happened to go here randomly, and this is what happened.
And you talked to him as he came out.
Yep. All the parents were on the. If you've never been in there, there's a right and left, and there's an aisle in between. So all the parents were on the left side, and so he was on the left side. So there must have been sporadic gunfire going on. He said it looked like just a normal Sunday mass. So it was full, you know, of people and children. So.
And how did he get out?
He just ran, you know, when the fire, he said it seemed like it went on for eternity, but when it stopped, he ran out of the building.
When did you first hear about this?
So we live about 2 blocks from here. I was on a call. All the windows of our home were open. I know what gunfire sounds like, and I could tell. I was shocked. I said, "There's no way that could be gunfire." There was so much of it. So it was sporadic. So it was a semi-automatic. It seemed like a rifle. It certainly didn't sound like a handgun. And so he must have reloaded, you know, several times for sure.
Do you remember about how many gunshots?
I'll just say maybe 30 to 50 to, you know, somewhere in that area.
Do you recall about how long
The fire went on?
Yeah.
For, I would say, several minutes. I mean, 3 minutes or, 4, I mean, which is a long time for live gunfire. I mean, that's a long time. You can wrap off a lot of shots.
An individual, Bill, who says he lives nearby, recounting what he experienced from his home as that mass shooting began during Mass. He said that someone who was in there who managed to get out of the church as the shooting began, that it was full. It was like a Sunday Mass. It was an all years Mass at this Catholic primary school, so you can expect kids from all across the school, which is a primary school, from kindergarten up to grade 8, in that church building celebrating Mass when this shooting began. Now look, we're looking at a live shot here from outside a hospital. We are expecting, any time now actually, officials from Hennepin Healthcare, a hospital in the Minneapolis region in the centre of the city, looking at a map here, not far from actually where the school is, to give a news conference with an update on patients they're treating. As we understand it, 3 people have been killed, including the gunman from a self-inflicted wound, 20 people injured. Healthcare officials due to update shortly. We are also expecting to hear in the next hour from the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, who has described what has happened as tragic, saying that the situation, when he first posted on social media, that there was no threat to the community because the shooter had been contained within the school, we believed. We are waiting on officials from the city and states to speak. Now, a congresswoman from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, has posted onto social media as well in the last few minutes. I'm trying to read out Miss Omar's tweet. It reads, "I am beyond heartbroken over the tragic news of the shooting at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. I am praying for all the families impacted by this horrific tragedy. I will continue to closely monitor the situation and provide updates." That's just the latest political reaction that I've seen here coming from Congresswoman for Minneapolis, Ilhan Omar. We've also, of course, heard from the President, Donald Trump, who said he's been briefed on the shooting. Please join me in praying for everyone involved. Now, the witness we heard from just a short time ago was Bill. His daughter also spoke to the press. Here's what she had to say.
This was their first day of all school Mass, so they have Mass once a week on Wednesdays. And basically the way that it's set up is children and staff, they sit on the right side of the church, then parents and other visitors who are just dropping in for Mass, they sit on the left side. Mass is for an hour, and I guess it sounds like this happened at around 8:20, and the Mass starts at around 8.
So it would have been during Mass?
Yes.
How long did you attend school here?
For 9 years, kindergarten through 8th grade. I was done at Annunciation in 2018.
Have you talked to any classmates or friends about
Yes. And my best friend, her mom was about to go to Mass, but then something came up and they didn't go. So I know a lot of people, everyone's kind of connected right now in the community and is talking about this.
Have you heard about victims or?
Not specifically, but I've heard there have been several fatalities. It breaks my heart, makes me sick to my stomach, knowing that there's probably people I know that are either injured or maybe they were even killed. It doesn't make me feel safe at all in this community that I've been a part of for so long. So me and my friends were talking like this is like our version of 9/11 because we didn't grow up during 9/11. So this is like this with our community. That's what it feels like.
Reaction there of an individual who lives not far from Annunciation Catholic Primary School. You can hear just how shocked she is that this has happened within her community. We're continuing to look here at the scene there of a hospital where we were expecting to hear an update from healthcare officials. Now told that will happen at the top of the hour, 1700 in the UK. So that will be 11 o'clock in the city of Minneapolis. Also expected to hear from the mayor of Minneapolis at past, Jacob Frey. But I would imagine that all officials will want to coordinate when they eventually say something. So perhaps that will also slip until the top of the hour. Looking there, you can see a microphone been set up, and I'm sure that when city officials, when members of the authorities are able and willing to speak, they will be at the microphone, updating the community, updating the country, updating the world as to what has happened. Now, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, has in the last few minutes posted onto social media saying, "We are at the White House monitoring the situation in Minneapolis. join all of us in praying for the victims. Of course, for prayers from J.D. Vance, we've also had that as well from Donald Trump, as well as every other politician who has commented on this. It's the latest shooting at a school in the United States. Now, reporting from CNN, which has used the Gun Violence Archive, Education Week, and Every Town for Gun Safety, organisations and charities that work to reduce gun violence in the United States, say there have been so far, this year, 33 school shootings in the United States so far this year. That's up to July of this year. The worst year on record so far for school shootings is 2024, where there were been a number of incidents. 2022 was the deadliest year in terms of fatalities. There were 83 shootings in 24. 2022 saw the most number of lives lost with 47 fatalities, according to the analysis. And that was the year that you may well remember that the shooting happened at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. 19 kids killed then. Well, our US correspondent David Blevins is following this for us stateside from Washington, D.C. Let's bring him back in now, David. Look, we're looking at the microphone set up as we're expecting a news conference from officials. And of course, we'll bring that to viewers live as soon as we get it. But at this stage, that news worth reiterating. 2 people killed, 20 injured, according to officials. The gunman dying of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. 3 in total dead in this incident at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis.
Yes, I think just to recap, it is worth reminding people that Annunciation Catholic School is the equivalent of a primary school in the United Kingdom. It serves pupils from preschool to 8th grade. They returned to their classrooms on Monday of this week following the summer break, according to a Facebook post, and they were attending Mass in the neighbouring Annunciation Catholic Church this morning when this shooting took place. We have had some response in the last few minutes from 2 Democratic senators from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. In her post online, Klobuchar writes, "I am heartbroken by the horrific violence at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis this morning. My prayers are with the students, teachers and families, and I am grateful for the first responders who are on the scene." And Tina Smith posts, "My staff and I are monitoring the situation at Annunciation Catholic School. I'm grateful for the quick response of law enforcement as we continue to gather information. It's the first week of school. These kids should not be fearing for their lives," she states. And we can see the speed and the scale of the emergency response to this latest mass shooting in the United States. But of course, they are responding to the aftermath of an act of violence which it seems was carried out by one person armed with what would appear to have been a semi-automatic weapon, according to eyewitnesses. They say that person fired shots for a considerable period of time during Mass this morning. Eyewitnesses say that this Mass that takes place every Wednesday sees the children seated on one side of the building, their parents and other adults on the other side of the building. So obviously they were contained within a building at the time, and that places them at greater risk. But the latest report we have from the Department of Justice is that 2 people have been killed, that the gunman has died of a self-inflicted wound, and that there are 20 others injured, and we await more detail on that when this press conference takes place, we're told within the next half an hour.
Yeah, we heard from officials in the city, an individual who came to the microphone saying that, as I expected, David, the news conference has been pushed back a bit as they try and make sure that they have all the information necessary to brief the media, to brief the public, the community, to make it clear as to where they are at this stage. As we know, as you've been reporting, David, 2 people have died as a result of the shooting, 20 injured, the gunman himself outside of that, to make a 3rd person died of a self-inflicted gun wound. Now, the Children's Minnesota Pediatric Trauma Center have released a statement. It's been reported by the Associated Press here. It's a part of Hennepin Healthcare, who we have been waiting to have an update from on camera. I presume that will happen as well at the top of the hour. They're saying that 5 children have been admitted for care as part of this shooting. They were also caring for patients from the shooting. 20 we are reporting that have been injured as a result of this incident that happened first thing in the morning at a mass in the city of Minneapolis at the Annunciation Catholic School. 2 people have been killed, we're reporting. The gunman has died of a self-inflicted gun wound, and it's just the latest in a number of school shootings in the United States. There have been 33 so far this year, looking specifically at the state of Minnesota, again using that research that's come in from CNN. There have been 11 school shootings in total since 2008. So in US standards, Minnesota, a relatively low number in terms of school shooting, but again, that sense that school shootings are a common occurrence in the United States. Incredibly, that kids are taught how to avoid active shooters when they arrive at school, in the same way that children in other parts of the world are taught about fire drills and school safety. Kids in the US have to learn how to hide from a person who may well enter their school with a gun. Now, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has been posting about this in the last half an hour or so as more details started to emerge. President Trump wrote on his Truth Social site, "I have been fully briefed on the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The FBI quickly responded and they are on the scene. The White House will continue to monitor this terrible situation. Please join me in praying for everyone involved." Words echoed by J.D. Vance, who in the last few minutes has also tweeted that the White House is monitoring and the situation, and he has called for everyone to join them all in praying for the victims of this. So David, let's just recap where we are at this point and what we understand has happened. This shooting, mass shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Primary School, and we think it began just after 8 this morning as the students and their parents had gathered at the church for Mass.
Yes, on the basis of the information coming to us from various government agencies, law enforcement agencies and eyewitnesses, it is our understanding that the Annunciation Catholic School adjoins the Annunciation Catholic Church, and that on a Wednesday morning the students there join with their parents and other members of the congregation for Mass. They were attending that service just after 8 o'clock this morning when eyewitnesses report the sound of what they describe as semi-automatic gunfire for a prolonged period of time. This was just the 3rd day of the new school year, so absolute terror for these primary school-aged children and their families and other members of that congregation. But the response has been swift and has been large in scale, as you can see. The various law enforcement agencies, SWAT teams, ambulance, paramedics, all there very, very quickly. But of course, they're dealing with the aftermath of an act of violence, a heinous act of violence, as it's been described by the Secretary of Homeland Security, carried out, it would seem, by just one person armed with a weapon. So yet again, we're hearing the thoughts and prayers of a president and vice president of the United States. But this is a nation that still appears paralysed by the whole debate about the right to bear arms versus gun crime. You've been saying, Kamali, 33 shootings, school shootings in the United States this year, according to the figures. 4 deadly shootings in the city of Minneapolis itself in the space of 12 hours. And all of this comes at a time when President Trump has been very publicly expressing his desire to crack down on crime here in the US Capitol, in Washington, where he has federalized the police and deployed the National Guard, those guardsmen and women now armed as well. He's talking about doing that in other places like Chicago and LA, and yet many people will look to this incident today and suggest that perhaps the president needs to refocus, and they will be encouraging him perhaps to return his attention to the issue of gun violence, particularly mass shootings which continue to take place in schools across the United States, where children from a very young age, even primary school age, in this school some of the children are preschool age at kindergarten, the equivalent of a nursery school in the UK, have to be trained for what to do in the event of an active shooting. Now, thankfully, this is no longer an active shooter scene. The gunman has been contained, according to the police, and that they are now dealing with the dreadful aftermath of another shooting that has left 2 people killed, at least 2 people killed, the gunman having taken his own life also.
Yep. And David, as you mentioned there, the thoughts once this situation is over, once this moment passes for those affected by it, will clearly turn to gun ownership and the number of firearms in the United States. Now, Minnesota, as you've been saying, is a democratic state. The governor, Tim Walz, a Democrat. And the rules for owning a firearm in Minnesota are slightly more restrictive than in many US states. In Minnesota, it's a shall issue state, which means you have to essentially apply for a permit to hold a firearm. You must be at least 18. Was 21, and there is a current appeal ongoing, it's reported here, to try and change that age back to 18. You need to provide proof of having completed a handgun training course from a certified instructor, and there must be no legal reason as to why you should not possess a firearm license under federal law. So you have to go through a number of hoops to get it, but you can still get that weapon, of course, in the United States. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms enshrined in their Constitution, and the reason why there are more weapons in the United States than there are people. Now, I just brought you that update from Children's Minnesota Children's Hospital as part of Hennepin Healthcare Group, who had said that there were 5 children being treated. They're now saying it's 6 children who are being treated. They say in a statement, Children's Minnesota is aware of the recent tragic shooting in Minneapolis. Our teams are trained to respond in times of crisis and are fully prepared to care for impacted children. Currently, 6 children are admitted to our hospital for care. We shall not share more details to respect the privacy of our patients and families. Children's Minnesota Children's Hospital reporting there, not far from Annunciation Catholic Primary School, that they are caring for 6 kids who have been injured as a result of this shooting. Now, we've had some of the political reaction, haven't we, David, from the president, from the vice president, from Congress people, from the mayor. We are actually, viewers, you're looking at a street there in Minneapolis, and you can see a microphone set up in the foreground of the picture there. We're expecting to hear from city officials, including the mayor, Jacob Frey, at sometime close to the top of the hour. So that'll be 5 o'clock UK time, 11 a.m. in Minneapolis. The senator for the state of Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, has told our colleagues at MSNBC that one of her employees has kids at this school. In an interview, Ms. Klobuchar, who is a Democratic senator for Minnesota, said that these kids are all doing an all-school mass. As we've said, this is a primary school, pre-kindergarten to grade 8, so young children, primary school in British terms. These kids are doing an all-school mass and had to watch several of her friends get shot. One in the back, one in the neck. They all got down under the pews, and she, her daughter, that's the daughter of one of Ms. Klobuchar's employees, was not shot, but her daughter ended up being the one to tell one of the dads of one of the kids that his daughter had been shot. The Democratic senator there, Amy Klobuchar, who's one of her employees, has kids at the school, 3 children at the school, reporting what she has been told by that individual, that this happened during mass as we understand it. The kids are there doing an all-school mass, kindergarten up until grade 8, young children. These are primary school kids in their first week back at school. 8:15 is the Mass. It's a weekly event when the kids are there with their parents, of course, as we heard from our eyewitness as well. This is also a Mass that's open to the public. People in the local community, people who are members of that congregation, go to this Mass, described as being like a Sunday Mass, so it was full. These kids are doing an all-Mass, Miss Klobuchar reports, and had to watch several of their friends get shot, one in the back, one in the neck. They got down under the pews, and her daughter, was not shot, but her daughter ended up being the one to tell one of the dads of one of the other kids that his daughter had been shot. The children traumatised by the incident that's happened at their school. We understand that 6 kids are being treated at a local children's hospital. We know that 3 people, including the gunman who died from a self-inflicted wound, have been killed in this incident. The total number, we think at this point injured, is 20, but that number may well rise because, as we've heard from eyewitnesses there was lots of fire, semi-automatic fire that went on for several minutes, said the eyewitness Bill, who was at his home not far, a few blocks away from this school when the shooting began. Now, David, you're still with us, of course, as we're waiting for the officials to begin their news conference. It's completely understandable as to why this has now slipped for about 45 minutes or so, as they perhaps make sure that they have all the information that they're able to share at this stage with everyone, and not get ahead of the story in any way by saying the wrong thing.
Yes, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, was very quick to describe this as a horrific act of violence. On the basis of that report from Senator Amy Klobuchar, horrific would appear to be an understatement. She described a conversation that she had with her employee who had 3 children at this school at the time of the shooting as one of the most difficult conversations of her life. Her fellow Senator Tina Smith says these kids should not be fearing for their lives. It's their first week back at school. They just went back into the classrooms on Monday after the summer break, and here they are dealing with what will ultimately be one of the most, if not the most, traumatic experience of their entire lives. It would appear they had gathered for Mass at the Annunciation Catholic Church, which adjoins their primary school, at around 8:15 this morning. At 8:20, law enforcement tell us they responded to reports of an active shooter. And we did fear that it was going to be a tragic scene because of what we were hearing from eyewitnesses who talked about the sound of what they believed was semi-automatic gunfire for a prolonged period of time. So we did fear with children in the building that they would be among the casualties, and Amy Klobuchar is now confirming that they are, as indeed is the Children's Hospital, where 6 children are currently being treated for their injuries. A total of 20 people have been injured, is what we're being told. The response continues at the scene. It's no longer an active shooter scene because the shooter has been contained, in the words of the law enforcement agencies. We're told that he ended his own life. But sadly, America is this morning again dealing with another mass shooting which has taken place, if not in a school building, in a church alongside a school building. And again, very young children appear to have been caught up in a dreadful act of violence. And while they're dealing with the immediate aftermath of that now, it will, of course, fuel the obvious political debate about how America might ever find a way to deal with the issue of gun violence, which has raged for so long. 33 school shootings this year alone. And here in the city of Minneapolis, they've been dealing with 4 shooting incidents in the space of just 24 hours. So it really is an issue that President Trump and his administration are going to have to try and turn their attention to and find a way to try and address.
Yeah, and one wonders what the response will be. We've heard of the prayers, of course, as often there is in these thoughts and prayers that are sent along, but many of those who are trying to reduce gun violence in the United States, the victims of gun violence, say every single time. Thoughts and prayers are never enough. Now, I was quoting CNN, who have done some reporting into school shootings in the United States. They use Gun Violence Archive, an online resource, Education Week, and Every Town for Gun Safety to compile these figures. As you said, David, 33 school shootings so far this year alone, 33 incidents in a school this year alone. Of course, kids have been on summer break for the past 8 weeks, so you can work out how frequently that sort of thing happens. But I just want to give viewers the past few years since kids were back at school following the COVID lockdown. 2021, 74 school shootings. 2022, 80 school shootings. 2023, 82 school shootings. 2024, 83 school shootings. It's a frequent event in the United States, and these kids are primary school age children. They are young. The kids start at this school at pre-kindergarten, that is 4, 5 years old, and they are taught active shooter drills. So I've had a look at what an active shooter drill is. Now, in many other countries in the world, kids are taught how to avoid fires, how to leave the school safely in the unlikely event there is a fire. But in schools in the United States, in kindergartens with children under the age of 5 and in schools up through primary school age, they are taught about active shooter drills. Now, these things are described as being teacher-led. The kids are taught to follow the teacher's commands. They're taught about lockdown procedures, how to lock themselves down in classrooms by turning off lights, how to move away from windows. They're given stories with pictures and simple language. It's reported that is easy for a child to understand, a child being taught how to avoid being shot while in their school. And one of the main things they are taught is how to stay quiet. Crucial aspect, it says, of a active shooter drill for a child is how to stay quiet. These children at school in Annunciation Catholic Primary School in Minneapolis, in their first week back at school, have gone through what is an unimaginable tragedy at this point in their young lives, and will have this with them throughout the rest of their lives as they, of course, have to continue going to school and continue having this risk hanging over them. Now, Minnesota Children's hospitals say they are treating 6 kids who've been injured as a result of this shooting. They're not providing any more details about the children's condition at this stage. Of course, we know that, according to officials in the US, that 20 people had been injured as a result of this shooting. 3 dead, including the gun person themselves, who we're told has died as a result of a self-inflicted wound. We've had, of course, the political reaction as well, calls for prayers. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, saying on social media that he's praying for the kids and teachers whose first week of school has been marred by this horrific acts of violence. As we await to hear from city officials, state officials, we're expecting a news conference in the next few minutes or so, around about the top of the hour, to update us on exactly the situation now. A situation which it would appear is over for now, but of course a situation, the memory of which will linger for a very long time in the minds of those who have been caught up in it. Now, we've heard from some individuals who live nearby in this community in the southwest of Minneapolis, who heard the shooting as it began this morning at just gone 8 o'clock. Let's take a listen to what these eyewitnesses told the media a little time ago.
My daughter here went to school here.
For 9 years.
And we've gone to church here for many, many years. So I don't know who. I've got people contacting me that, you know, I'm limited as to exactly what I know, but so we know people. I have friends that know people who have been shot. So
The survivor who described the wood being blown around them.
what's that now?
The survivor who described the wood being kind of blown off around them.
Yep.
Remind me how you know them.
So I didn't know him.
Okay.
This gentleman goes to morning mass every day of the week, and he usually goes to the Basilica.
Yeah.
He just happened to go here randomly. and this is what happened.
And you talked to him as he came out?
Yep, all the parents were on the, if you've never been in there, there's a right and left, and there's an aisle in between. So all the parents were on the left side.
All right, we're going to step away from that for a moment. You can see there the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is about to speak. Let's listen.
Words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country. I'm so deeply saddened, and I'm so sorry to the families that I know are suffering right now. My ask is to everyone, stand by them, love them. These families have forever been changed, and we've all been changed with them. We need to do everything possible to support them through this time. We have a family resource center that has been set up. I'm grateful for all of the law enforcement agencies from a number of different jurisdictions, and all the different departmental support that we've received. They're going to be working tirelessly. There's also a family resource center that is being set up as we speak to make sure that we're there for everybody. Again, to the families that are suffering, to those that have experienced loss, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We love you. This kind of act of evil should never happen, and it happens far too often. The chief will provide additional details.
My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. Earlier today, just before 8:30 a.m., our city experienced an unthinkable tragedy. Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a shooting at a mass that was happening at the Annunciation Roman Catholic Church on the block behind me. This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building, while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. 2 young children, ages 8 and 10, were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children. 2 of those children are in critical condition. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church. Our hearts are broken for the families who have lost their children, for these young lives that are now fighting to recover, and for our entire community that has been so deeply traumatized by this senseless attack. We will stand together to protect our children, our schools, and our houses of worship. This deliberate act of violence is just a sign of cruelty that is beyond comprehension. Our hearts are broken for everyone that's been affected by this tragedy. As we begin the difficult path of healing, I want the community to know this, that even in the face of such evil, the Minneapolis Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners stand with our community. We stand with these families and with this parish. We will continue to be here for you. With that, the investigation is obviously in its preliminary stages, and I will attempt to take some questions to provide further information.
Chief, what can you tell us about the suspect in this case? How old was he? Any kind of motivation? Any notes or any other information that are left behind?
So we were looking, the question was, what can be said about the shooter? We believe it is one suspect, a sole shooter. We believe he is deceased. He is in his early 20s, does not have an extensive known criminal history, and we are looking through information left behind to try and determine some type of motive. Yeah.
How many kids at the school? How many kids at the school?
How many children? I don't have an exact, the question was how many children at the school. There were dozens of children inside the mass at the time. I don't have an exact count. The children have been relocated into the school, which is where their families are reunifying with them.
Other than the shooter,
Reg.
Other than the weapons, what was the shooter a student, former student? Was he a former employee? Do we know that?
The question was, do we know if the shooter was a former school employee or a former student? We don't have that information.
Did he leave anything behind other than the weapon?
There's a vehicle. The question was anything left behind? There's a vehicle that we believe that the suspect used that is being searched, and we will be conducting other searches related to this.
Where was it parked?
Inside the parking lot here.
Yep.
There was some neighbors who said that the door to the church had been barricaded.
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the question was, neighbors had said that the door to the church had been barricaded. The shooter approached on one side of the church building, and on that side, at least 2 doors, it appears there had been like a 2x4 placed. So not all of the doors around the building, but on the side where the shooter did fire.
And on the outside?
On the outside, yes.
Were there any explosives that were found?
The question was there any explosives? There were reports of that. There were no explosives or improvised devices that we found. I do believe there was one, I guess you would call it a smoke bomb, like not an explosive, but a sort of a firework that would release smoke.
And which side of the building? North, south?
The side that is closest to us, here, on this side, yep.
Was the incident related also at these nearby homes?
I don't have specific information on that I can release. The question was, is he dead from a gunshot wound? The answer is yes. We believe he took his own life in the parking lot.
Was this outside or both inside that he was shooting?
The question was he shooting outside and inside? He was absolutely shooting outside of the building on the side of the church, inside through the windows. It appears he may have gone inside, but I don't believe we've located any casings inside the building. So I'm not certain if he fired also while inside. It appears, if not all, most of the shooting happened outside the building.
Chief, is this shooting
So, yeah, Taylor's asking, is this related to any of the other shootings? This does not appear to be related to any other shooting in the city.
Do you know approximately how many rounds were fired?
The question was how many rounds? I would say it's in the dozens. We don't have an exact count. There's a sidewalk on the outside as well as a grassy area. So obviously we are going through and taking our time to process the scene.
Was he firing just one weapon, like the rifle? Or...
The question was he firing one weapon? We believe he had fired all three. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Chief, was this individual licensed to conceal and carry? Did he have any...
Were the weapons, was he lawfully carrying the weapons? I don't have that information. And I don't have any information on any significant criminal history either.
Was he dressed at all in any tactical type of gear or anything?
It appeared he had some black clothing on, his cargo-type pants. I guess you could interpret that as, you know, however you like.
All right,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping us to get the information out today. We have a lot
No more
work
questions?
that needs to be done. We will return back later today to provide more details as they become available, and we'll let you know how you can know about that in the moments to come. Thank you.
Okay.
How can the public help?
You're watching the News Hour here on Sky News, and we were just hearing from Brian O'Hara, who's the Minneapolis police chief, about the shooting that happened there at a Catholic primary school in the city. We've learnt that 2 children died in that shooting. They were aged just 8 and 10 years old. 17 people were injured, including 14 children. It was happening during a Catholic mass that a lot of children were at because they were marking the start of the school year. Happens a bit earlier in the US than it does on this side of the Atlantic. And he described the person who carried out the shooting, who has since taken their own life in the parking lot, said the police chief there, as being someone in their early 20s, didn't have a significant or extensive, I think was the word he used, criminal history, but was carrying a rifle, a shotgun and a pistol, and used those to carry out what he described as cruelty beyond comprehension. So that was Brian O'Hara, the police chief of Minneapolis. Let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins, who joins me now. And David, cruelty beyond comprehension, but cruelty in the US that isn't very unusual, sadly.
Yes, and I think there was a sense of that in the words we heard also from the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, a very emotional mayor, talking about the horror and evil that had been visited upon the city this morning in what he described as an unspeakable act. He summed it up very bluntly: children are dead, families have deceased children, and there are no words to describe that. He encouraged people listening to think of this as if they were your own children, because he wants America to realise that there is still an issue regarding gun violence, particularly in schools. He is a Democratic mayor. He said people need to stand by these families because the city has been changed, and these families have been, in his words, forever changed by what happened in that church this morning. The Annunciation Catholic Church sits alongside the primary school in an area of Minneapolis called Tangletown, and the children had gone there with some of their parents and other members of the congregation to mark the first week of term, as you say. We heard from the police chief how the mass had just begun, really, when shots came through the window. He talked about the gunman being armed with a rifle, with a shotgun and with a pistol, and he talked about dozens of rounds being fired towards innocent children. That's why he described the gunman as a coward and said he had ended his own life with a bullet as well. He did give us some more details about the gunman as well. He said they believed he was in his early 20s, had no extensive criminal history, and they were still attempting to establish the motive. They also said they were searching a vehicle that he had driven to the scene. So alongside all of those practical details we're hearing, there is already I suppose, the debate re-emerging in the United States about how they might ever find a way to balance the right to bear arms against the unspeakable violence that we've witnessed in Minneapolis again this morning.
And David, as you mentioned there, it happened during a mass. There were a lot of children there from this Catholic primary school marking the start of the school year with that mass. But it wasn't just children in the congregation. It sounds like there were other people there worshipping as well.
Yes, we understand from people in that community that on a Wednesday morning when they attend Mass, the children sit on one side of the building and their parents and some other members of the congregation on the other. So the building sounds like it would have been fairly well filled this morning at 8:20 when police received reports of an active shooter in the building. And as you can see, the response of the emergency services was significant in scale and in speed. But at the end of the day, they're dealing with the aftermath of an act of violence which has been carried out, it would seem, by just one person armed, in this case, according to the police, with 3 different types of weapon: a rifle, a shotgun and a pistol. And we could talk about the statistics of school shootings, 33 of them this year alone all day. But ultimately, it is the trauma for those young children. This is a school that serves children from preschool to 8th grade, the equivalent of a primary school in the United Kingdom, who will now bear the trauma of this for the rest of their lives. And I think the horror of it was perhaps best described by Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is a Democratic senator from Minnesota, in an interview with MSNBC. She said she'd spoken to one of her longtime employees who had 3 children in the school this morning. And the senator described the call that she had with the mother of those 3 children as one of the most upsetting things she has ever heard. The woman's daughter, who's in 7th grade, watched as some of her friends were shot. This is what Amy Klobuchar said. These kids are doing an all-school mass and had to watch several of their friends get shot, one in the back, one in the neck. And they all got down onto the pews, and she and her daughter, that's her employee, and her daughter, of course, were not shot. But her daughter ended up being the one to tell one of the dads of the other kids that his daughter
David, I'm just going to interrupt you there. We're going to a local hospital now to hear the latest from there about the shooting.
The last 24 hours that have occurred, these mass casualty incidents. The one today, we received a total of 11 patients from this incident. 2 of them were adult patients, 9 pediatric patients. 4 of them required the operating room. And up to this point in time, there have been no fatalities related to any of those patients that were brought to our organization. I want to take a moment to tell you how proud I am to work for this organization and the teams that were involved, the resources, again, that were mobilized, our surgical colleagues, our medicine colleagues, our amazing nursing staff, our psychologists that help process these events for us, environmental services, all those involved. Hennepin EMS brought in all the critical patients from that scene to our organization, and we were very lucky to have 2 emergency medicine, emergency medical services directors that were on scene and able to provide us with really important information that, again, helped us to prepare for this event. So I don't have any individual or specific information about the patients at this time for you, so that's all I can share. Thank you for being here. Any questions?
You said they were in critical condition?
7 were brought in as critical patients, and at this time, I don't know the updates on what the conditions are of many of them. 4 of them required the operating room, as I said. There were, again, 9 of the 11 patients were pediatric ages. I can't remember the exact name, the exact ages. I believe it's 6 all the way up to 14. That's the range.
Can you tell us a little bit about what types of teams you had working this morning, how many people it takes to treat us?
Yeah, you know, whenever that type of a page goes out, again, it really puts into motion a lot of a big response from all of the teams. And so we are, because we're a level 1 trauma center, we have to, mobilize certain types of resources like, operating rooms and the surgical services. We have to have emergency providers and nurses. We have to, mobilize things like the laboratory and the blood bank. So there's a lot of planning, and again, a lot of exercises we do throughout the year to prepare for these events. And unfortunately, we respond to many of them throughout the year.
Can you talk about the injuries at all, or any type of what you're seeing here with some of these patients?
I can't get into specifics, but we are dealing with gunshot wound injuries from apparently a high-velocity weapon. And, gunshot wounds can be very problematic because they can involve multiple body systems. And again, they require a lot of resources to manage. But again, we see a lot of gunshot wounds here at Hennepin Healthcare, and we're among the best in the nation every year at managing penetrating trauma. So we are used to seeing them.
Can you tell us where the status of the 11, are any of them still in surgery?
I don't know the status of that. I can't share that with you at this time.
Was anyone shot more than once?
I can't share that information with you at this time.
You heard from their families of some of the victims that made their way here?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of effort to stand up a reunification center across the street here at our clinical specialty care building. And so to my knowledge, I believe all or almost all of the families and loved ones have been reunited with patients and know their status.
Do you know if anyone is being treated at any other locations?
My understanding was we had a lot of the non-critical patients that went to Children's Hospital, and I believe one went to Masonic Children's Hospital as well. I don't know the status of any of those patients.
Can you speak to the toll it takes on physicians here who have to handle these types of cases of mass Catholic cases within hours?
Yeah, it does take a toll. Thank you for asking that question. I think. Again, we have psychologists that we have dedicated to our emergency department to help with our providers and our nurses and other workers that manage these types of events. Again, we've had 2 mass casualty events happen in the last 24 hours. I mean, that does take a toll. But we also have to recognize that we are here as a critical resource for our community, and we have to take time to process, the care that we deliver in these situations, and we have to be able to move forward because we are obviously needed.
And none of those patients have been discharged?
Not to my knowledge.
You said there were 11 total, and 9 of them were pediatrics, ages 6 to 14, but 7 were in critical condition. Are all of those that are pediatric, those 6 to 14, are all of those the critical condition, or the ones that are older also in critical condition?
I don't want to misspeak here. I believe that all of the pediatric patients were the ones that were in a critical condition. Yes.
Did I get my numbers right?
You did. Mm-hmm.
Can you give us your specific title one more time, doctor?
It's Thomas Wyatt, Chair of Emergency Medicine at Hennepin Healthcare. Thank you.
Well, as you just heard that man say, he was Dr. Thomas Wyatt from Hennepin Healthcare Hospital in Minneapolis, dealing with a lot of the injured, a lot of the children, I'm sad to say, who were victims of that shooting at a mass that was happening at a Catholic primary school earlier in the day. Something stood out there. They very experienced, he said, dealing with this kind of trauma. The children were injured in line with someone using a high velocity weapon. We know that the shooter, according to Brian O'Hara, who is the Minneapolis police chief speaking earlier on, was carrying a pistol, a rifle and a shotgun as well. And it is extremely resource heavy in dealing with those kind of injuries, he said, and also, of course, takes its toll on the people who are having to do so. He talked about having psychologists available for those healthcare professionals who are dealing with the aftermath of such a terrible shooting as this. If you're just joining us here on Sky News, just approaching 5:20 here in the UK and Ireland, and a reminder that 2 children aged 8 and 10 years old have been killed in a shooting that happened during a Catholic mass on school grounds in Minneapolis. A lot of children in that service, marking the start of the school year that is just getting underway in much of the US. And as far as we know, 17 other people were injured, and that includes 14 other children. We just heard from that doctor there saying none of those children in their care have died, but many of them have quite serious injuries from being shot as well. As for the person who carried out the shooting, said to be a man in his early 20s who subsequently took his own life in the parking lot of the school there, and someone who didn't have an extensive criminal history. Let's bring David Blevins back in, because, David, we're getting other reaction as well from the state of Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz, who people may remember as being, of course, the running mate of Kamala Harris in the election in the US. Governor Tim Walz calling the violence horrific online, posting on X. He said he's praying for our kids and teachers whose first week of school was marred by this horrific act of violence. And I'm sure there's going to be a similar response right across the US, given that it is the end of the summer holidays and children starting back for the new term just this week.
Yes, just 3 days into the academic year, and already America is dealing with a mass shooting involving school children. Governor Tim Walz's post online talking about this horrific act, I think, is the first thing that really alerted us to the potential gravity of what had happened at Annunciation Catholic Church this morning. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, then described it as a heinous act, and together their comments were reinforced by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, talking about his concern for the children and their parents. He said he was praying for them, as indeed did the Vice President, J.D. Vance. But it was quite pointed, I thought, when the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, said this was not a day for thoughts and prayers, because a horror and evil had been visited upon them. He described it as an unspeakable act and said the lives of these families had been forever changed, and he wanted people to really reflect on the fact that it could so easily have been their children who'd been caught up in this act of violence. The police chief describing it as an unthinkable tragedy, and really giving us some of the horrific detail. The gunman, armed with 3 different types of weapon, a rifle, a shotgun and a pistol, firing dozens of rounds through the windows of the church just as this mass to mark the beginning of the school year was getting underway, leaving 2 children dead, aged 8 and 10, 17 injured, as you say, 14 of those children, and 2 remain in a critical condition.
David, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that. You're just seeing images of Minneapolis. We also heard the police chief saying their investigation is, of course, in its preliminary stages. But just to reiterate what David said there, 17 people injured, 14 of them children in this mass shooting in the city of Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota. But sadly, 2 children aged 8 and 10 have been killed. We'll have more for you here on Sky News after this short break.